Hello and welcome to Lightways at Life Astrologer with me, Anna Isabel. And well, those of you who are regular viewers of this program know that I have a number of favorite people. I couldn't possibly just have one favorite person. I'm very greedy in this respect. I have lots of favorite people. And today I am extra excited because I have one of them with me, and it is Felicity Warner. Hello, Felicity.
Oh, hello. It's lovely to be back again. Really special to see you. Thank you.
Well, it's the previous two times that I've interviewed you have been from my other channel, In the Light Growing Your Soul. So this is the first time that you're actually here because you're giving a talk at the Astrological Lodge of London, and it is called Sacred Oils and Astrology. It's on the 3rd of April at 7 p.m. And I couldn't resist hearing about sacred oils and astrology. So I think a good place to start would be, what are sacred oils?
That is a good place to start. So sacred oils really belong to a tradition, a very, very ancient way of working with aromatic oils and resin that goes way, way back to temple times, when oils were used for their frequency and vibration to harmonize, to realign and to rebalance our soul and our spirit, so that the depths of ourselves. And so a sacred oil is an oil that is used with intention to work for the highest good of the person who you're working with, or it might be ourselves as well. So the sacred oils that I work with, for instance, some of them will be familiar, such as, well, rose and sandalwood and myrrh, but there are others that are much less familiar, much less well known, and just have a very ancient lineage stretching behind them for healing. So that's them in their simplest description.
Well, I love using sacred oils, and I must just mention your wonderful book called Sacred Oils, which I feel was a life changer for me in many respects, because I started using them and I'm still going through all the different oils, and some of the experiences I've had have been extraordinary using them. So I'm fully converted to the benefits and the beauty of sacred oils. Where does astrology come in?
Yes, well, this is interesting as well. So I've mentioned that it's a very ancient tradition. Certainly, we think, going back to ancient Egyptian temples, and it's based on celestial medicine, which was really a combination of many disciplines, including astrology and astronomy, and sacred geometry as well, and sound, and really a knowledge of the body's energy system. So alchemy would have come into this as well. So that's at the root of all the practice. I'm a modern day mistress of the oils, or myrophore, as we're also called, a woman who works with myrrh. And I have a sort of working knowledge of astrology, but it's been interesting for me in preparing for the talk, because I've been working out which oils I think are most linked to the houses of the zodiac. So I've been doing some work on that, and that's been really, really interesting.
Do you mean the houses, or do you mean the signs?
Sorry, I mean the signs. There we are. Yes, that's what I meant to say. Thank you. Yes.
Well, I just wondered, because I could see it working with the signs. I was very curious as to how it could work with the houses. So I'm
slip of the tongue.
So I'm that's wonderful. So how are you matching them? Is there an existing tradition where certain oils are associated with particular signs and planets? Or is this something that we intuitively would connect?
Well, probably a bit of both, actually. And certainly within this tradition, we pay a lot of respect to the elements. So we're looking very much at earth and water and fire and air, and also ether. So there are correlations there, obviously, with certain with some of the astrology signs, but also with the sacred oils, who will really present archetypal connections with the elements. So certainly I've been looking, for instance, if I've been looking at Aries, I've been thinking of an oil called Niauli, which has a very sort of curious aspect to it, in terms of the power it has for forging forwards and for burning off dross and for sort of forging in the new. So there have been ways of sort of linking the oils with sort of looking at the characteristics of the signs of the zodiac, and then matching them to the characteristics of the oils.
Well, it's made me think about medical astrology, because in medical astrology, there is a correlation between certain plants and planets or signs. And so you're now expressing a similar, well, you're expressing the same idea, that the energy of certain signs is going to be similar or compatible with the energy of certain oils. So this is not unfamiliar territory in a sense. There is a long tradition of that in the different context.
Yeah.
So I find that very interesting. This is a slight tangent, but it made me think about the flower essences.
Yes. Again, great similarities there between the flower essences and the sacred oils. And again, I've been doing quite a lot of work on the connections between the two recently. The flower essences I've worked with for many years, sort of on and off, but not in the same way, that the same sort of dedicated route that I work with the sacred oils. But I've been very lucky to do some work with a medical doctor, Dr. Andrew Tresidder, and he's quite an expert in the flower remedies, and we get together, he with his remedies and me with my oils, and we do sort of clinical work on the hoof, looking at what combinations will go well together. And it's interesting because the flower remedies are, I think, tend to be a gentler approach, using the vibration of the plant, to the oil, which is much more magnified and much more concentrated.
My experience of using the oils is there's nothing subtle about them.
No, there isn't. They are boom right there.
Yeah. Well, I would say either they're working or they're not, in my experience. And a lot of the time they are, but I have had some extraordinary meditative experiences using the oils, which, as I say, there's nothing subtle. When it happens, there is nothing subtle about it. It's been a wonderful journey, and it continues to be, because I'm obviously still exploring. So flower essences, sacred oils, astrology. Mm-hmm. The next question that begs to be asked is, are you using the moon at all in terms of timing for the best times to use certain oils, etc.?
Yes, that does come into it. We do work with the moon, certainly, and one of the things that we'll do that's predominantly associated with the moon is if we're just beginning to connect with an oil for a therapeutic reason, or just because it's calling you, and they really do call you sometimes. So if you're just noticing that rose, for instance, is just in conversations you're hearing about rose, you walk outside, you see roses flowering, somebody brings you some roses, that could be a real kind of indication that rose is on your radar somewhere. And what I would say is, with somebody just beginning to work with rose, is to meditate each day of a lunar cycle. So we're using harnessing the energies of the moon as it waxes and wanes to really draw us into the cycle of the oil itself. So that would be something that we do. And also to an extent, if somebody is really needing to really have a very direct communication with an oil, I would certainly suggest starting that at full moon, and really, having the frequency of the oil as expanded as it can be, which it would be at full moon.
Well, we're recording this on a full moon.
We
and
are.
I have been working with myrrh, and so I'm going to make absolutely sure that I do not miss my meditation time this evening.
Good. That's a really, really good idea. And in fact, I'm going to be starting this evening with galbanum. I shall be doing a lunar month with her. I'm Piscean, and it's my birthday tomorrow. So this is a really kind of feels a very pregnant moment for doing some deep inner work.
I used galbanum last summer, and I think there's an aspect of my life which changed very quickly once I started using it, and I can't describe it except that it's startling. One moment I was one thing, the next moment I woke up and thought, oh, I'm going to do this, and then came the let's just say that in meditation, I was taken into past lives, something I've never had happen to me before. And that was galbanum.
That is very interesting. Now, you see, it's very associated with being a bridge between dimensions. So that really makes a lot of sense to me. And I also feel it's very associated with Neptune. It's got this very kind of Neptune-y feel to it. I don't know if you feel that too.
Well, I laugh because at the time that I was using galbanum, and I really was not making astrological links to this. Mm-hmm. I do remember it was around the full moon in July. And I also remember that I have been going through Neptune sextiles to my sun, but equally also in my chart, Neptune plays a very important part. And at that point, the part of my chart that is very sensitive because of this Neptune was being activated. So I'm being careful about using too much astrological jargon because I'm not sure how in you are with it. But
not as in as you are.
I'm being a bit careful, but I'll just say that there's a part of my chart that where Neptune plays an extremely important part, and it was being activated at the time, and it was around the time of a full moon where all of this kind of kicked off and happened. So I think galbanum is definitely up there on one of the ones that has been more startling to work with.
That's so interesting. It really is. I mean, it also has a connection with the pineal gland and the third eye. And so again, this is taking us into quite kind of mystical places, you know, when we're in our meditation, and it's really opening us up to, as you say, quite startling things sometimes. You know, it can be quite a jump, quite an abrupt jump into something. So yes, all this makes a lot of sense.
So I was just thinking about another one that has, in a very different way, had a very powerful effect on me, and that's marigold. And so I was just wondering, given that it's marigold,
Yes.
would you link that with Leo?
I would. In fact, I'm just looking, I've made a couple of scribbled notes. So yes, Leo, fire is calendula, it is marigold. And it's a wonderful oil for when you want to get to the root of something. It gives you clear sight. It's such a lovely, warming, bright, golden, piercing energy that yes, it is exactly the oil that I'm pairing with Leo.
Well, I'll tell you why I it's been so startling, because when I started working with it, my request was for help to raise my frequency.
Uh-huh.
And my goodness, it gave it to me in song. And I have been singing all the time since I used Marigold. I sing every single day at different points in the day.
How amazing.
And the interesting thing is that no sooner had I kind of got that inspiration whilst using it, I then also interviewed the wonderful Jonathan Goldman for my other YouTube channel, who is a sound healing expert. And then I learned from him the how sound is another way of raising frequencies, something that Marigold, whilst meditating with Marigold, I had been taught. So it all kind of came together. And so Marigold's been wonderful. I was also thinking about Fregonia and wondering whether there is a link between Fregonia and, say, Venus.
Yes. There, well, there may be, I'm not sure, but I would put Fregonia certainly with Libra. Fregonia is the great balancer. She's the great oil for bringing everything into balance again, just like the scales in Libra. But she is a very, very feminine, very gentle, very loving, and very caring, which is very linked with the Venus type qualities. So yeah, that's a really interesting observation as well.
Tell you why. I'll tell you why it is that I have this association between Fregonia and Venus. When I was meditating with Fregonia, I started to just have images of baths. But I'm not talking about your run-of-the-mill bath.
Right.
It would be, you know, those beautiful Roman sunken baths.
Yes.
With fountains, you know, and rose petals, and every time I meditated with Fregonia, I had that, and I thought, right, okay, I'm a shower person, but I think I'm going to take a bath tomorrow.
Ah,
And so I did. And what happened in that bath, and this was a very run-of-the-mill bath, I didn't put any oils in it, I didn't have bubble bath, I didn't do anything special whatsoever apart from lying in the bath. And I can't, this is going to sound so weird to average person. It's not weird in my world, but it would be to the average person. So I'm almost hesitating to say this. But whilst I was in the bath, I wouldn't say that I saw an image of Venus, I wouldn't say that I had a visitation from Venus.
Oh.
What happened was I felt like I was Venus.
Oh, so you were embodying her.
Like that. It felt like suddenly I was, you know, that feeling you have. I apologize to the men who are watching this and who have never had this experience of being a young woman at around the age of 15 and 16 and and suddenly feeling beautiful. And
Oh, I knew you were going to say that. It's like the West Side Story. I feel pretty. And it's just
yeah,
like you just feel alive
yes, and
with
it's
beauty.
exactly that.
Yeah.
So you know, I wish with all my heart that every 15, 16-year-old girl would awaken to that feeling at some point. Uh,
Oh, yes.
because it feels like that's what should happen to all of us. To have that feeling of being beautiful and special.
Yes.
And then you might get it again, when you're in when you first fall in love.
Yes.
And this I'm sure men would recognize. Or that feeling again when you're aware that somebody that you're interested in is interested in you. And in that moment in the bath, that's what I felt. And I hadn't, of course, felt that in a long, long time. Because that is something that's a feeling of spring, the springtime of life, isn't it?
It
Um,
is. I
and
so know what you mean.
it
Yes.
felt like such a gift because I felt it again. And
Oh,
so I've been using it with clients to help them reconnect with that inner beauty. And
wonderful.
that's why I thought of Venus for Fregonia.
Yes. Well, yes, I can absolutely get it. That really makes sense to me. I mean, Fregonia is so uplifting. And I suppose in a way we're talking about that, aren't we? Because, and it is, again, it's frequency raising. You feel $1 million. We have a joke in soul midwifery that as soul midwives, we get very tired. We're companions to the dying, and we give everything we have to give. And we get tired from it sometimes. So we say, okay, work with some Fregonia because it'll give you a lift and you'll feel wonderful again. So you've just completely epitomized that feeling.
So now here's the funny thing. Venus, in terms of the elements, is connected with an air sign and an earth sign. So why was it important I go and have a bath? Well, in mythology, of course, Venus comes out of the sea, of the foam of the sea.
Yes, she does. Absolutely.
So maybe that's why.
That is wonderful. I love this.
So I've been sharing a few personal anecdotes about the oils, but my hope is that by doing so, if you are watching, you are going to get the bug and go and find out more, and be sure to be at Felicity's talk, Sacred Oils and Astrology, on the 3rd of April at 7 p.m. Now, Felicity, is this going to be a Zoom talk, or are you going to be at the lodge in person?
It's a Zoom talk, so
And
yes, I'll be on screen.
no matter where you are, you can find out more about sacred oils and astrology. And if you can't wait until the 3rd of April to find out more, I will be putting a link to Felicity's book, Sacred Oils, in the description box. And I have another question for you before you go. And that is a question about Mercury, because Mercury did accompany the souls and could accompany the souls, was able to go into the underworld, etc.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you are Myrifor.
Yes.
Is Mercury the planet that is linked with Myrifors? because obviously we'd be tempted to say Pluto because, for obvious reasons. And we might be tempted to say Neptune also because of the healing aspect.
Yes.
Wondering about Mercury.
I think Mercury comes in as, again, a kind of like the messenger, helping the soul to shift from the physical across to the non-physical. That feels a very mercurial aspect to an oil. Now, there are two oils that make me think of that very much. One is Elemi, which is a beautiful oil associated very much with as above, so below, but also when people are just very close to the edge of death and when they're just about to transition. And I see Elemi as associated with air, and also with Gemini. I have a sense there's a kind of a quickness there, which is also quite mercurial. So yes, I think of that, but also I think of spikenard, another oil, which was the really the ancient oil that helped people prepare for death and transition. And again, I'm sensing, I'm intuiting as I talk here, but I can sense a mercurial aspect to that as well. It's something about the journey rather than the destination, I feel.
I like the link with Gemini and Elemi as well, because when I was experimenting with that particular oil, I kept getting visions of blossom and orchards, and this, the smell of springtime. And Gemini just seems right for that, because of it's late spring, but it's still spring.
Yes.
But it's that lightness.
It's
and
the lightness.
That how can I put it? Light joy. I
yes,
think
totally. Elemi is totally light joy in a bottle. It is so full of life, vivacious and expansive and full of optimism. It's got this wonderful, you only have to hold the bottle, not even smell it, and you feel that if you tune into its energy. It's extraordinary.
Well, yet another reason for people to go and explore.
Oh.
It is always a joy to talk with you, and so thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, well, thank you so much for inviting me, and I've loved chatting about this. It's been really lovely to share these thoughts together. It's really been special.
And thank you all for watching. If you want to learn more about astrology, do check out my website, and the link for that will be in the description box. Oh, and on that note, Felicity, if people wanted to find you and find out more about your work, how do they do that?
Oh, well, I have a website, which is www.soulmidwives at soulmidwives.co.uk. I had to think about that for a minute.
So I'll be putting a link to that in the description box as well. So thank you again, and thank you all for watching. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.